May 10, 1972, 30 miles northeast of Hanoi. Lieutenant Randy Cunningham hears the Sidewinder tone lock onto a MiG-17, half the speed of his F-4 Phantom. For 7 years, American pilots fly Mach 2 jets yet lose at rates that terrify Pentagon planners. By 1968, North Vietnamese MiG pilots in subsonic aircraft shoot down American jets at nearly even odds. In 1965, the Department of Defense declares the gun-armed dogfighter dead. The F-4 Phantom, capable of Mach 2.2 with radar-guided missiles, embodies missile-age philosophy. Early F-4C models carry 0 internal guns because combat will happen beyond visual range. Air Force and Navy squadrons deploy to Southeast Asia, confident technology guarantees air superiority. On March 2, 1965, Operation Rolling Thunder begins, and rules of engagement ban airfield strikes until October 1967. Fighter pilots must visually identify targets before firing, collapsing engagements into close-range dogfights. The F-4 never was designed to win. The AIM-7 Sparrow achieves 8 to 15% probability of kill in combat. The AIM-9 Sidewinder performs slightly better but fails 85% of the time. Navy and Air Force squadrons receive little dissimilar air combat training. Pilots practice against identical aircraft flown predictably. Over the Red River Valley and Thud Ridge in 1966 and 1967, American jets encounter MiG-17 seconds and MiG-21 seconds flown by pilots trained in energy conservation tactics. The subsonic MiG-17, introduced in 1952, carries a 37mm cannon, effective inside 1,000 meters. The MiG-21 combines a 23mm gun with better turn rates than the 28-ton F-4. North Vietnamese pilots exploit tight radius turns that bleed American jets of energy. U.S. Navy kill ratios from 1965 to 1968 hover near 2.5 to 1, far below predicted 10 to 1 ratios. Air Force losses over Hanoi match or exceed Vietnam People's Air Force losses. The problem splits into 3 failures: restrictive rules, unreliable weapons, and training that never simulates threat tactics. On June 17, 1965, 2 Navy F-4Bs from VF-21 encounter 4 MiG-17 seconds northeast of Hanoi at 8,000 feet. Commander Louis Page fires an AIM-7. Sparrow the missile destroys 1 MiG, marking the first U.S. aerial victory in Vietnam. 3 days later, Sparrows fail to track, and the Phantoms have no guns to finish the engagement. The MiGs escape after a 3-minute scissors fight. Over 18 months, Navy and Air Force squadrons fire hundreds of missiles with success rates that shock weapons testers. In 1966, the 8th Tactical Fighter Wing records 11 MiG kills against 4 losses, a 2.75 to 1 ratio. VF-96 and VF-92 post similar numbers through 1967. Pilots report Sparrows losing lock-in clouds, missing due to radar clutter, or failing to fuse on direct hits. The standard loadout includes 4 Sparrows and 4 Sidewinders, 8 chances to kill, where 1 MiG can ruin a 20-aircraft strike package. During a December 1966 engagement near Phuc Yen, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Titus fires 6 missiles at 1 MiG-21 without scoring. He runs out of missiles and fuel before reaching the tanker. His wingman covers the retreat. By mid-1967, F-4 squadrons carry external Su-16 gun pods on centerline stations, adding 600 pounds of drag. The Su-16 holds 1,200 rounds but vibrates so violently it scatters rounds across 50-meter patterns. Admiral James Stockdale commands Carrier Air Wing 16 aboard USS Oris Caney in 1965 and 1966, watching kill ratios erode. We had speed, we had radar, we had missiles, none of it worked the way the brochure promised. The technology works in test ranges, but combat over North Vietnam is never controlled. Not a missile problem, alone, but a gap between engineering assumptions and combat reality. By late 1966, Colonel Robin Olds commands the 8th Tactical Fighter Wing at Ubon, frustrated by rules protecting 11 MiG-21 seconds and 20 MiG-17 seconds at Phuoc Yen and Gia Lam, Olds designs Operation Bolo, a deception to lure MiGs into a gunfight they cannot refuse. On January 2, 1967, his F-4Cs mimic F-105 Thunderchief radar signatures, call signs, and flight paths. The North Vietnamese scramble interceptors, expecting bomb-laden thuds instead. They meet 56 Phantoms configured for air combat. Olds and his pilots down 7 MiG-21 seconds in 12 minutes without losing an aircraft. The engagement becomes Rolling Thunder's most lopsided battle, but it cannot be repeated, the Vietnam People's Air Force learns within weeks. We suckered them into a fight they thought they'd win. It worked once. Over 6 months, MiGs return more cautiously, using ground-controlled intercept radar for slashing attacks, exploiting the F-4's poor rear visibility. Olds rotates home in September 1967 with 4 kills. But Air Force kill ratios remain below 3-1. VF-114 and VF-213 record multiple engagements where missiles miss and MiGs escape. In October 1967, the Johnson administration authorizes airfield strikes, and Navy A-6 intruders crater Phuoc Yen runways with 2,000-pound bombs. The raids ground the Vietnam People's Air Force for 3 weeks, but repair crews restore operations within 30 days. The fundamental problem persists. American pilots lack training to exploit advantages when missiles fail. Fleet replacement squadrons teach intercepts against cooperative targets at predictable speeds. Pilots arrive in Vietnam having never flown against adversaries, mimicking Soviet doctrine. In December 1967, a Center for Naval Analyses report lands on the Chief of Naval Operations desk, documenting a training gap so severe it recommends a dedicated aggressor squadron. While Olds wins one battle through deception, the lack of realistic training makes every other engagement a coin flip. In March 1969, 9 Navy pilots gather at NAS Miramar, California, to build a school no one officially authorized. Captain Dan Pedersen, a veteran of deployments aboard USS Hancock and USS Bonhomme Richard, leads the group that becomes the Navy Fighter Weapons School callsign TOPGUN. The school receives $0 in fiscal year 1969. Pedersen and his team scrounge aircraft, fuel, and ordnance from West Coast squadrons. They borrow 2 A-4 Skyhawks and 1 T-38 Talon to simulate MiG-17 and MiG-21 flight profiles against F-4 crews. We knew what worked in war, and it had nothing to do with what the schoolhouse taught. The syllabus emphasizes dissimilar air combat training. F-4 crews face a 4 seconds and T-38 seconds painted in camouflage and flown aggressively by instructors studying Vietnam People's Air Force tactics from gun camera film. Every flight ends with detailed debriefs, where mistakes are dissected without rank protection. Lieutenants correct commanders if film shows it. Top Gun graduates return to carriers and train entire air wings, spreading doctrine across the Pacific Fleet within 18 months. Simultaneously, Major John Boyd at Eglin Air Force Base completes Energy-Maneuverability theory, a mathematical framework plotting energy states for every jet at every speed and altitude. The F-4, heavy at 28 tons, bleeds energy in sustained turns. EM theory teaches pilots to fight vertically, using altitude as stored energy. The MiG-17, with much lower wing loading and tighter instant turn, dominates horizontal scissors. EM theory shows pilots how to deny that fight. Boyd's work filters into Air Force squadrons slowly, but Top Gun integrates it immediately. By late 1970, instructors fly with EM diagrams velcroed to kneeboard cards. The school graduates 8 crews in 1969, 12 in 1970, and 18 in 1971, small numbers with outsize impact. In the headset during training, the Sidewinder tone no longer signals a guaranteed kill. It signals the start of a geometry problem thinking pilots solve. Not technology that changes the war, but training that teaches pilots to exploit what they already carry. On the other side, Nguyen Van Kock joins the Vietnam People's Air Force, 921st Fighter Regiment, in 1964, at age 21. He flies the MiG-17 Farads, an aircraft designed 12 years before he was born. Van Kock trains at air bases in southern China and Noi Bai, learning energy conservation tactics from Soviet instructors. The MiG-17 carries 2,400 kilograms of fuel, compared to the F-4's 7,500 kilograms. Every combat second costs the Vietnam People's Air Force dearly. North Vietnamese pilots practice ambush tactics, diving from 20,000 feet to fire 37mm cannon bursts before American missiles lock. Ground-controlled intercept radar stations vector MiGs into positions behind U.S. strike packages, entering along predictable routes from Thailand and the Tonkin Gulf. Van Kock scores his first kill on April 30, 1967, downing an F-4 over Hanoi. By 1968, he records 9 kills, making him one of 16 Vietnam People's Air Force pilots achieving 5 or more victories. We did not need speed, we needed position. The VPAF operates under harsh limits, little fuel, scarce spares, airfields under threat. Yet in 1967 and 1968, Van Kock and his fellow pilots achieve parity against a force outnumbering them 10-1. They succeed because American pilots arrive predictably, follow predictable flight paths, and brake predictably when fired upon. The MiG-21 introduces hit-and-run tactics, exploiting the F-4's poor rear visibility. A MiG-21 dives, fires, and climbs away before the phantom crew knows it's there. U.S. pilots call it welded wing syndrome. They hold formation too rigidly, making them easy targets. Van Kock and others attack the number 3 or 4 aircraft in a flight, knowing leaders rarely break formation to defend wingmen. The VPAF loses more jets in total but replaces pilots faster. With 18 months in combat, a VPAF veteran often outmatches a first-tour American. Not inferior pilots flying inferior jets, but a force optimized for a specific fight while their enemy prepares for the wrong one. In November 1968, President Johnson halts Rolling Thunder, and the air war pauses for 3 years. The Navy embeds TOPGUN graduates in every carrier air wing. When President Nixon orders Operation Linebacker in May 1972, the North Vietnamese face different pilots. On May 10, 1972, the first day of Linebacker operations, Navy F-4 seconds from VF-96 and VF-51 fly combat air patrol over the Red River Delta at 15,000 feet. Lieutenant Randy Duke Cunningham and his radar intercept officer, Lieutenant Willie Driscoll, patrol when ground control reports MiG activity. 4 MiG-17 seconds climb through clouds to intercept an alpha strike heading for the Paul Doumer Bridge in Hanoi. Cunningham rolls his F-4 into a descending spiral, cutting off the lead MiG's escape vector, a maneuver learned at Miramar 8 months earlier. The Sidewinder tone locks, and he fires at 8,000 feet. 1 MiG explodes. The 3 remaining MiGs break left into a horizontal scissors that would have killed F-4 crews 2 years earlier. Cunningham refuses the turn fight, pulling vertical to convert 450 knots into 5,000 feet of altitude. At the apex, he rolls inverted and dives back, lining up a second shot from the MiG's blind spot. The second Sidewinder tracks another MiG, tumbles into jungle north of Hanoi. Within 90 seconds, Cunningham scores a 3rd kill, making him the Navy's first ace of the war. The tone locked, and I knew exactly what to do. Miramar taught me that merge. Across the theatre, similar engagements unfold as Air Force and Navy Phantoms down MiGs at rates not seen since Korea. On May 11th, Air Force captains Richard Steve Ritchie and Charles de Bellevue downed 2 MiG-21 seconds near Yen Bai, using vertical energy tactics from Boyd's theory. The Vietnam People's Air Force scrambles more fighters, but American pilots now dictate engagement terms. Navy kill ratios in 1972 climbed to 12.5-1, nearly 5 times higher than the 2.5-1 ratio from 1965 to 1968. Air Force squadrons finish Linebacker near 4-1, up from 2-1 during Rolling Thunder. The change has nothing to do with new aircraft. The F-4 seconds flying in 1972 are the same models that struggled in 1967. Missile reliability improves slightly, but the AIM-7 still achieves only 15% hit rates. The decisive variable is training pilots trained against dissimilar aircraft win even when missiles miss. During a June 21st engagement, Ritchie downs his 4th and 5th MiGs, becoming the Air Force's first ace. De Bellevue participates in 6 kills, making him the war's highest-scoring American aviator. The Vietnam People's Air Force, unable to adapt during the 3-year bombing halt, continues flying the same intercept profiles that worked in 1967. On August 28, 1972, VF 161 downs, 3 MiG-21 seconds over Haiphong without taking damage. The North Vietnamese Air Force loses 92 aircraft during Linebacker 1 from May to October 1972. U.S. losses total 27 aircraft to MiGs, yielding a combined 3.5 to 1 ratio. The Navy's 12.5 to 1 ratio proves TOPGUN's model. By December 1972, the Vietnam People's Air Force stops contesting daylight airspace over Hanoi. Linebacker 2, the Christmas bombing campaign, proceeds with minimal MiG interference. The Vietnam People's Air Force cedes the sky to focus on surface-to-air missiles. The perception break completes faster jets and better missiles do not win dogfights. Training that replicates threat tactics wins dogfights. On January 8, 1973, the last aerial engagement occurs when an F-4 downs a MiG-17 over the Gulf of Tonkin. The sidewinder tone that marks the kill sounds identical to the one Cunningham heard on May 10, but the outcome was decided months earlier at Miramar. TOPGUN becomes permanent in 1973 and expands to train 100 crews annually within 5 years. The Air Force establishes aggressor squadrons at Nellis Air Force Base, flying T-38 seconds and later F-5 Tigers in Soviet camouflage. By 1975, every Navy fighter squadron deploys with at least 2 TOPGUN graduates. Boyd's energy-maneuverability theory influences F-15 Eagle and F-16 Fighting Falcon design, both entering service in the mid-1970s. The 1972 kill ratios vindicate the training model leadership mandates, dissimilar air combat training for all fighter pilots by 1976. In 1982, Israeli F-15 seconds and F-16 seconds down 82 Syrian MiGs over Lebanon's Bekaa Valley without a single loss. Using tactics from TOPGUN and Red Flag, the 82-0 ratio cements the training revolution as doctrine across NATO. Modern fighter pilots spend more hours training against adversary aircraft than identical types. The lesson remains: technology creates opportunity, but only training converts opportunity into victory. The fastest jet loses to the better-trained pilot every time the fight goes visual. Missiles fail, radars jam, and rules of engagement collapse range advantages. Training beats tech at the merge.